Like on the last day of the games, everyone is just in the village taking off their shirt and everyone's just stripping and it's awesome. I knew that I had unreached potential in high school because I got kicked off my high school team twice in running because the coach was an So I was like, yes, of course I wanted to be an Olympian. But it didn't seem possible. If you want to get to the highest level, it needs to be your full-time job. Practices were where you said ready, set, go again and again when you know how much it hurt. You went to the well. You will not come out of this pretty.
When you got there and you were getting ready, were you feeling the weight of the world?
I felt so much pressure actually, and they told me, they said to run really well because you are I've had extreme experiences. I've seen unseeable things. It is scary, some of the things I saw.
What gave you extra superpower about not having your mom?
What I didn't acknowledge and what probably led to like the depression after was I really wanted that so that I could matter forever. And that was because like when my mom left, I was like, how could I possibly not have been compelling enough for her to stay?
Hi, everyone. Well, the Olympics are here and I look forward to it. There's tons of struggle and dominance. Athletes coming together to compete for the glory of their country. The story of the Olympics is often one of really broad strokes. We often only see the athletes' years of training being boiled down to a race or one match. For some, they find glory and others heartbreak. The stakes are the highest in the world and the preparation and pressure are immense. So for the next 2 weeks, we wanted to strip back the veneer of the Olympics. I'm going to be speaking with two Olympians who have very different stories. I'm going to dig in with them about the details of the Olympics and their lives that are normally, well, they're just left on the cutting room floor. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Alexi Pappas, the Greek-American runner and Greek national record holder in the 10,000 meter. We discussed the challenges she faced losing her mother at a young age, how she fell in love with running, and what it's like really at the Olympic Village. Welcome to the Gabby Reece Show. Let's go. All right, Alexi Pappas, welcome to the show. And we have a lot to cover because you are a person who not only, I think we're all a lot of things, but very few of us get to experience it. And I think make it come to maturity at the levels that you have, from Olympics to making movies. I think we do it usually in more subtle ways. And when I was doing my homework, I realized I didn't live with my parents from 2 to 7, but when I was 5, my dad died in a plane crash. And you lost your mom very early. And, you know, there's a lot of things I think we think, what if they had been around or whatever. But oftentimes what I have tried to do is look at, well, what has made me better because I didn't have my dad? Because it's so easy to do the other, right? And I think it's obviously different when you have a mom. It's your mom. It's a mom. It's just different. But I was thinking about this, and because I thought, okay, I didn't have my dad, so maybe I actually became more of the masculine. I developed more masculine energy as maybe a compensation, which helped me in sports. It helped me understand men. Eventually, I married a man, understand them better. Things like that. I wondered, given all that you have done in your life, if you've ever thought about the flip, not what was sad about not having your mom, but maybe what gave you extra superpower.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you even pointed out because I feel like it's hard to even imagine something that you don't have, right? Like we can really only... It's hard. I mean, there's the imagination, right? But to visualize what you actually are is easier. So to know what you were without your dad or what I am without a mom is more like what you really are, right? And I guess some of the superpowers were, or if that's what we're calling them, some of the like what happened.
Or the listen, in some ways it's the overcompensation that you end up having to try to dial back, right? Because it's like, yeah, that was great for survival, but let's calm down now.
Yeah.
So either way.
Well, look, I think that there was a I was aware that there was a lot of commentary from other moms, because like, so what I'm going to say is a reflection on what I assume I didn't get, also and what I got from not getting. So what I didn't get was any kind of guidance, which was hard. And so I had to learn how to guide myself. But what I also didn't get was like opinions and commentary. And so I also had decision making entirely in my hands, whether it's like what I wore, what I said, what I did. And my dad is pretty passive and not like super, strongly opinionated toward those things either. So I think what I got was like a runway to just create and become and needed to, because I knew that there was no one to pick up the phone to tell me what to do. And that has been hard, like in this separation that I went through. So many times I was like, man, it only gets worse and worse to not have a mom. Because I was like, this is when people call their mom. This is when the mom, and those are all assumptions, right? But I genuinely was like, I am nobody's problem. But I was like, good thing I have the ability to solve my own problems too. So
it's so interesting because I always tell my single friends, just enjoy and celebrate whatever's there is about being single. If you're married, if you have young children and it's a total shit show, seek the beauty in that. And I think if we actually can do that in all the things, we end up further ahead. Because I was talking to Laird about this. When it comes to parenting, do you ever see those desk displays with like the wave that just sloshes back and forth? It's like water that moves from one side, and then once it gets to the other side, it goes all the way back. And it feels like in parenting, you're going to this one side, here's the reaction over here, so then you try to balance it out. But it's just this never-ending seesaw that you actually won't get right. Because if you go all the way this one way and then the other, and all those things. So I think life has that. And from sport, because there's, I loved your video on, I think it was a coach maybe that talked to you about the thirds. Maybe you could just share that really quickly, because I think it's important.
That was my Olympic coach, and he was an Olympian as well. And so, sometimes you have to hear the things from the right people where it's like everything you say is meaningful to me. And he saw me struggle tremendously and succeed, right, in equal measures. And he was the one who pulled me when I was looking too crappy, right? And there was one day when I was looking terrible, feeling terrible, a month out from the Olympics. And he didn't pull me from the workout. And I was like, well, what's going on? He's like, it's okay, Lex. Like, it's the rule of thirds. And I was like, I don't know what that is. And he said, when you're trying to do something hard, like chase this Olympic dream, you have the Olympics in a month, you're supposed to feel good a third of the time, okay a third of the time, and crappy a third of the time, or not great, right? Whatever language you want to use.
Yeah.
And this was a crappy day, right? And so he was like, you're going to keep doing the workout, but that is a part of the dream. As long as it's not 8 crappy days in a row, this is really good. And then I started to become more jockey about it and being like, yeah, this is a bad day. And I'm like going to just like keep crying on the track, but like finish the workout as best I can. And I started to believe in it. And it's actually so fun when you believe in this rule of thirds or whatever it is for you, because those crappy days can be so romantic, because you're like, it's a crappy day in my big pursuit of life.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like those are the days that we really understand ourselves and how we actually feel. We give ourselves almost that permission. And then simultaneously, it's like we can endure it and get back up and say, okay, I can do it. But I don't know that I'm connected to how I'm actually feeling when it's going great. It's like all the lessons don't come in winning. They come when you lose.
Do you think it's because when you're winning, like there's like the sensations are like the resistance isn't there. So there's not actually like a thing to like reflect off of because it's all smooth?
Yeah. And I think you're probably more in flow state.
Yeah.
So it's sort of happening, and maybe it's those divine moments where all the elements just come together. It was the right training and it's the right day and it's the right temperature and it's the right sneakers and you hydrated and it's your day. Mm-hmm. Could also be it's your day. Mm-hmm. So I think that it's sort of like being in relationship. The only way I can really know myself is to be in relationship to another person. And that's also, I think, why it's challenging. So when you shared that third rule, and I know a lot of people have seen that, I thought it's just really important because we're scared of that.
Mm-hmm. What, the hard days?
Yeah. I still fight it. And then I'm like, really? Like, how many times have you been here? Just go with it. Because that's also where the change occurs. Like, obviously, something's not working. Maybe I should take another look at that, whether it's in business. I mean, you're in the film business, whether it's in sport, whether it's in relationship, whether it's in your self-care. It's like, hey, something's not working. Pay attention. And also, if you're building an Olympic dream, let's say 2016, how's that ever going to be easy?
To have the hard days?
No, meaning you're not going to be going to the Olympics and be like, oh, yeah, it was no problem.
Yeah, no, it's hard for everyone. And that's why when you get there, everyone is so respectful of each other because everybody knows that they don't know what the specifics were of other people's journeys, but they understand it was a big, kismet and like brute force meeting each other to get there, so yeah.
Let's go back to when you're 12, let's say 11, 12. Did running find you or you find running? Like in looking at your physique, I always think we also can gravitate towards certain things because you're like, I'm kind of good at that. Or it seems harder for this person, and I sort of seems easier for me. And I know that that's a shakeout. And there's a few athletes who could do multiple things, but let's just say if I look at you, you think, yeah, that makes sense. It's not like, I'd say you're trying to be a power lifter. It's like, oh, this body makes really great sense for that. But it is it's like swimming to me.
Running?
It's just brutal.
I love that.
It is. And it's like, what's fun? Okay. Like when it's over. Do you know what I mean? Like, because sports with balls.
Yes, they're so fun.
And you have teammates and like, yay, and all these things. Yes. So when I see that and I go, oh man, what is it?
Well, that's why I didn't run when I was younger. Like I played all these other sports, right? Like I loved soccer, loved softball, loved basketball. Didn't love gymnastics because they were like it was too intense, too soon, too individual. I wasn't flexible enough.
I was going to ask you, how's the flexibility?
No, they would like step on our backs. Like I remember I would like do that, like whatever you're kind of doing a kind of the splits and they would step on our backs. And I was like, no, do not step on my back. I'm like 8 years old or whatever I was, I was probably younger. I was probably like 6. But these other sports lit me up, like the team ones, because there's nothing better than needing everybody to try their best, be their best, and die for each other. Like make something mean something that means nothing, right? And running, I didn't love it at first, right? But I was good at it. And I also wanted to be good at something. So it was in my mind, and I was like running in middle school, but I was doing these other sports. And I think kids should do multiple sports, especially if they would like, if the vision is maybe they'll end up doing one, that's even more reason to do more than one, right? Because your bones, your muscles, like, I can't tell you how much I attribute the health of my Olympic running career to playing soccer for most of my life, until college. And that was when I found a team that felt like a soccer team where I was like, oh, I could like decorate shirts with these girls. I could get lost in the woods with these girls. I could stay in on a Friday night and watch the people go to the parties, but not go when we wanted to win. Right. And so it had to be fun. Yeah, it had to be fun.
So were you just exponentially better at running and you were going to have more opportunity and you knew that, like, if you said this, like, okay, I wanted to be good at something, did you think I have the chance at being the best at that? And that's why you chose it? I
didn't know how good I would be because I knew that I had unreached potential in high school because I got kicked off my high school team twice in running because the coach, he was an alcoholic. He was very impressionable and he was encouraged to make everyone just run. And I wasn't ready when I was 16, right? And I was like number 2 in California in running, but I loved soccer. And he was like, you can't do anything but run. No student government, no theater, no nothing. If you miss a practice, you're off the team. And I was like, all right. And I missed practice because I wanted to decorate the hallway for Spirit Week. And so I didn't run, but I knew I had not reached my potential. And so that felt unfair. But I was also like, if I'm being real with myself right now, it's not making me happy to just run. So it was kind of like a shelved ambition. And then this was before social media. And so college recruitment for running was heavily just a piece of paper of a descending list of times. And I met certain criteria to be recruited. And I was curious about it, but it needed to feel right. And so, but I knew, right? You know that you have this like probable chance of being good. You don't know how good. And then it's embracing the word development, right? Like nothing happens overnight. It took like the 2 or 3 years that I was out of running to get even in shape to score a single team point. I was bad. Like I was last on my Dartmouth team. I was crawling across finish lines. I was like cheering from the sidelines. And that's okay because I knew it was in there. I just knew I couldn't take shortcuts and get there, yeah.
Where do you, because I think people go through this in just different arenas, not just sport, where you go, it's in there. I just have to go through that development process. What is your, what things did you put in place as a young person? That's hard.
Yeah.
18,
wow.
19, you're emotional. It's maybe, I don't want to say we're more dramatic when we're younger. I don't mean that in a condescending way, but let's face it, we have less life experience. So everything does seem sometimes a little, this is the end of the world kind of thing. Were your practices in place that you were like, that you got up every day and you thought, no, I can continue?
I just saw this thought that like we should really label that period of time when you're like not pursuing something, but you're like definitely not there yet. Like development isn't like a sexy word, but if there was a word for it, I mean, it's kind of like when the butterfly's in the chrysalis or whatever, but it feels like we're more active in that time. So it doesn't quite feel right to say that. But if there was a word for it that's like, I'm in the milkshake or like I'm in the blender, like I don't know what it is, then maybe people would feel like it's actually like it's official. It's not something to rush through, and it's something that people go through. When I was in the blender, when I was in this time between, I remember just trying to find ways to contribute and matter no matter what. So for me, that did mean I showed up to like the first cross country meet. I wasn't brought to the meet because I wasn't on the travel squad, but I took my own bus to New York and wore like a snakeskin bodysuit and cheered next to a guy from Brown wearing a Burger King costume at the top of the hill. And I was like, well, I matter. Like my teammates need me at the top of this legendary bear cage hill or whatever, And so I was like a funny girl, kind of. I was like a mascot, but I mattered. And so I think having a role is really important, right? Having value and knowing that could evolve. You want it to be a team point, but right now you're a mascot. Cool. So it was that. And it was basically saying, am I progressing? And that's like a question people don't usually champion because they don't realize like if you're progressing in anything, whether you're healing an injury or you're trying to be the best, that's all you can ask for. That is the win, is just progress, right? And if you're not progressing, then we have to ask harder questions of, am I doing the right actions that would lead to progress? But if you are progressing, like, what do you have to complain about? That is the process, right? Is that...
It makes me weepy when I actually think about that because it's so true. It's very true. I wonder, though, you have to have enough self-belief and good ego to go to the Olympics and have a national time record and run in very brutal races. I mean, the distances that you're running, I mean, and especially like living in my body, I look at that and I go, yeah, no thanks. Like that is my biggest nightmare besides like singing on stage. Gymnastics too. I look at that language and I go, I don't speak that language. You know, the physics on that, I just go, But to stand there, to get yourself there, your team's doing it, you're being of value, but it's a weird calibration of ego. And I feel I feel like we have to do that, right? It's like, I'm good enough that I'll get there and I will contribute in another way, but then somehow I can pull back. And, you know, I call it farmer flower. Like sometimes Laird's the flower and I'm the farmer and I'm happy to be the farmer. I'm like that for my kids, of course. But then sometimes I'm like, yeah, no, I'm the flower and y'all can be the farmer, right? So in that moment, for you to be able to do that at that age, because we don't know that we can click in and out of it, right? We either think, hey, if the light's not on me, I won't be able to do it. So how do you think you had that ability?
You mean to basically like feel okay farming myself?
And your teammates. Letting them be the flowers. You're standing at the top of the hill. Maybe you gave the guy from Brown a little elbow.
Yeah.
I mean, because sometimes that takes people out.
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. I think, because like, I'm pretty like, I guess I'm like kind of I'm a metaphorical thinker. Like I like images and blah, 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 but I like processes too, and having like systems and things. And so I think I had previously had a conversation with myself that I had committed to where I was like, I believe that there is reason to try this for a period of time and see where progress can take me, right? So you make an agreement with yourself. It's almost like a contract. Like we sign these athletic contracts and you're in it for however long this term is. So I've signed this contract with myself. I'm going to try this for whatever it is, a season, and then check in, whatever it is, a year, 2 years, maybe people really want it, whatever. So I'm in it. I'm in the contract. And then I think then you tick the boxes. Am I like it is, you go back to, am I progressing? Yeah. And then I think what you're asking is in the moments where you're being a gardener for your teammates who are the flowers, how do you feel okay in that?
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to hold space for such powerful personal belief and the belief in your process while you're in that uncomfortable of becoming.
Yeah.
And then supporting and watching people that are. It's such an interesting thing to house. I understand it, but I'm just fascinated how you were able to do that.
I think you have to have a sense of humor. Like, I think you have to just be like, wow, I'm in this onesie. I used to be really, really good. I know I could be better than all these girls, but I know that there's a truth that I won't be there today. So it's like truth is actually really peaceful and positive. Like if someone rejects you or if you're simply not fit enough, or you're simply injured, like in truth, there's so much freedom in that. So if you can in earnest honor where you are right now, like I am as fit as I am. I'm number 8 on the team. Only 5 are running. I know where I am, but I've already committed to the process. I believe that I can get there. Then you can hold those things at the same time. And then, maybe it's this thing where, okay. How about we talk about like, so there's a goal in mind, right? The goal is to be good and to be the flower in this story.
Well, because for you, it would be about winning.
Sure, to win. Whatever the goal is, there are steps that everyone goes through to get to their goal. And what's cool is that like the goal may or may not happen, right? We all know that. But whether or not the goal happens, the process that we have to get to the goal, if we're pursuing it with integrity, it looks the same, right?
That's right.
And so if we assume that maybe that is going to happen, and we also don't know, then when we look back, we're going to associate the whole journey there as a part of that dream. And we're gonna be so romantic about it when it does happen. And so why not be more romantic about it while it's happening regardless of the result? Like I just think there's something so romantic and not in like a sexy way, in like a, wow, look at me chasing this thing that I don't know I'm going to get. And like, look at me at the, like there's a storytelling that makes everything a little bit more like you're a Pixar character. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what it is. It's like, instead of being like, woe is me, you could be like, I'm like that kid that's not going to win, but maybe I am. You know, it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a choice.
I think it is really interesting as somebody who's getting ready to talk to you, and I've obviously seen you in other places and listened to your conversations. You are a very interesting contrast of somebody who seems like they'd be picking daisies and shooting, you know, a sniper. Like,
yes, like
it's
both.
So interesting.
Both of those things.
It is for me. It's fascinating, and it's actually so beautiful to witness because not many people like that. If you think about running, you're on time. It's all about times and the amount of, you know, consistency. You know, runners are like swimmers. They don't take days off. They're running all the time. And then you're writing movies and you know, creating characters that has that sort of fantastical, romantic element to it. So it seems like you naturally can sort of call to both the sniper and the daisy picker pretty easily, easier than most, I would think. It looks like.
Yeah, and they're kind of similar. Like, to push, you have to let go, right? Like, to go crazy in a race and like when it really hurts to go faster, you kind of have to like double down. Maybe that's the sniper. And then you have to just like basically like surrender to whatever the sensation is and keep going. Like, they're like holding hands.
What does that look like to surrender to that kind of discomfort? Because again, certain sports have a stop and start. So you almost get a second to kind of, okay, I catch my breath, as you know, whatever it is. When you're in that last kind of kick in a race and you aren't going to stop and it's uncomfortable, where do you go in your mind, that relationship with that discomfort, and how do you turn over to it?
Well, the truth is that practices always hurt more than races. Like, the practices were where you actually did 8 reps, said ready, set, go again and again when you know how much it hurt. That's hard. That's really hard. And the practices were where you didn't hit the times, right? Like, you went to the well sometimes, which is like, you will not come out of this pretty. And so it always felt like the races I was like prepared for those. But look, there have been races since. Like, I ran 100 miles last year, really untrained. And that was really hard. And I had to walk a lot of it, but I was like, I'm not dropping out. And I think what it takes to lean in when it hurts is, I guess what it is it feels more like you decide and then you lean in, and then whatever feelings that come, as long as it's not like an injury, I just try to process it as a sensation. Like, you feel something, but you're like, there's a sensation. Yes, I feel something, but I'm almost like swallowing it like you swallow anything. I guess that feeling. Yeah. How do you feel when you?
It's totally different. I would never have the audacity to compare. I've had moments in training that are uncomfortable, but my sport wasn't that.
Right. And your sport's really interesting to me.
Is it?
Yes. Because it's like they're very specific roles, right? Like, and I spoke to Victoria Brown, and she was sharing about how specific everybody is and how basically you have to, that you can, if you do well, that's the base. Like, you're expected to do what you're expected to do. Yeah. And that's crazy to me. It's not heroic to do your job.
Do your job.
It's do your job. Yeah. And I was like, what? Because in most sports, maybe I'm sure there's plenty of sports where that is the case, right? Maybe it's gymnastics is like that, where it's like, do the job, do the thing. I don't know, but it's different. But I just find it so fascinating that everyone is there to like do that job. And that's the minimum requirement, is do it perfectly.
Yeah. And so if you go indoor, it's really geared that way, like a watch.
Okay.
And if you go to beach, it's, there's a little bit more, we're all doing everything.
Okay.
But it's still a different version of that expectation. And then it's sort of like, okay, well, if you do your job and they beat you, that's okay. But they've got to earn it.
So it's like the difference between mental and technical errors, or like...
Yes, and also you're playing percentages. So if I give you this part, if I'm giving you this shot, I'm putting that in quotes, that is on a statistical screen, the lower shot for you to do, meaning the higher percentage for margin for error. There's all these things. So I'm going to push you and say, okay, if you can do that shot, which is harder, and your odds for making a mistake are much greater, you can have that point. I'll give you that. But I'm going to take the area that is sort of, I have to take the area where your greatest odds for not making a mistake are happening. So if you are ballsy and you have enough control, then that's why you ever see tennis players when somebody makes a shot and they instantly tap their racket, like they applaud them, because it's like, hey,
you did that. Wow.
You took the riskier shot. You made it happen. You executed. That's good on you. I did what I could do.
Wait, how does that affect you in like relationship with other people?
What do you mean?
Well, I just am so, because if the way that you related to like your teammates was like an expectation that you're here to do what you're here to do.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You better do what you're doing.
Yep.
So that's like a way of relating to people that's like very, that's like there's an arrangement here, right? There's an expectation.
I have it in my marriage for sure.
Well, and I have a problem with this too, with like, I talked to Wes about this.
Uh-huh.
We went on a run and we were talking about, okay. I don't mean to get off subject.
We can. It's okay.
We were talking about having goals. And basically like I realized that in every interaction, if I don't remind myself, like there's actually no goal here, we're just hanging out, I will have a goal because I'm used to having goals. And I like in like romantic stuff, I have to remind myself like there's no goal here. Like it doesn't matter what happens. You know what I mean? Or with friendships, with going to dinner, there's no goal. And it can really mess you up if you think there's a goal in every interaction. You're like, that's awful.
But sometimes there could be a goal.
Of course.
No, meaning,
like
maybe this has come later in my life. My goal when I interact with the people, whether it's a person at the grocery store or my partner, is I'm going to try to bring my best.
Okay.
And that just means I'll come in with the attitude first, and it's conscious because I'm not going to naturally react this way. I'm going to come with my warmest, most loving, pleasant, not like, oh, how are you? Like I might slip into that and say, hey, I'm having a hard day, but I may not lead with that.
But that's a goal for yourself. I'm talking about a goal for the interaction.
Oh yeah, no.
That's where I've had to like.
Oh, do you have that? Well, amazing.
I've trained it out of myself because it's like.
But what does that look like? Like a goal in a romantic scenario? It
would mean like you're like with a guy. Like you could be with a guy and like expect sex and like it's like no, like that's not.
He's like, I just met you.
No, not like that. But like you could be like, I mean that's so embarrassing. But
no,
you
it's
could
not.
be like, oh, we're like. Yeah, you could expect that something is going to lead to something, whether it's physical or I expect that someone's going to ask me something. I'm expecting to be asked how my day was. And it's like, first of all, like you can have a goal or you could expect anything and then you're not really present, right? You're not letting it be a relationship. You're really trying to get something out of it. And that's not effective. It's wrong. It's not pleasant for anybody.
Yeah. It's
stressful for you because you're like reaching for something that you don't need to reach for. And I'm like much, I'm growing out of it, but it took a while of reminding myself like in this interaction, well, also in Hollywood, look, a lot of like meetings are like you take a dinner meeting and it's like, yeah, there are actually goals there. So like sometimes
that's appropriate.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying our lives kind of blend everything to the point where if I'm not mindful before I go into a situation of like, what is this really? I might not like orient correctly, and I'm getting way better, but I think that's a weird.
No, I think so going back to the team analogy.
Yeah.
I don't have the expectation. I never had the expectation that my teammates would do X, Y, and Z. I only put that on myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And now they're in charge of themselves.
Okay.
And the coach can be in charge of the whole unit.
Okay.
But I mean, you might, if there was sort of 5 weird errors in a row, you might be like,
right.
Hey, but at the end of the day, it is like any relationship. I can only manage myself. Mm-hmm. So you'll make whatever choices and moves and decisions you're going to make. And I'll react or adjust accordingly. But I'm not here to police you or be your mom or your coach or tell you what to do unless that's my role. Mm-hmm. Like I'm the coach. Okay, that's different. So I think going to a meeting, let's say you're making a movie and you have a person and maybe they're going to either fund it or that's usually probably the thing, right? The biggest thing. Let's fund it. Let's go, you know, is your goal might be, I'm going to try to communicate this and tell them the storyline and draw them in and do my best job at that. And then not have the expectation whether they will give or not. But you certainly have to have a direction as why are you having this dinner?
For sure.
Yes.
I'm more talking about that. Yes.
Are you talking about?
I'm talking about friendships. I'm talking about with like other human interactions.
Yeah.
Like the ones that are not work.
Strategic.
Basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ones that don't need to be, and the ones where you can find something better without having a goal, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, and I'm fascinated by, I like talking about your sport because I think it's it's very, I guess it does have some similarities to soccer and like how you orient and things, but.
Well, and it's all connected like a thread.
Right.
Right. So I can't do what I need to do if you're not doing what you need to do. And that harmony between that tension of that thread, which is connected by the ball, which is so glorious and rhythmic. And that's why it's so beautiful.
How aware are you of your opponents in a game? Like, are you looking at them? Are you?
Yeah, certainly. Oh, certainly. And so you're looking at even weight. Like my position, for example, indoor was to pay attention to where which side the pass is coming from. All of a sudden, you're understanding odds right then.
Wow.
Good pass, bad pass, low pass, high pass. That means very different things can happen, different options. Yeah. Then you're looking at the body weight. A really good setter can fake out every hitter just by looking like they're going to the right and pushing the ball back. So really good setters are dangerous. They'll jump set, which is even worse because then you don't know until the last second where they're going to do with the ball. Hitters, it's all that, but you first have to take care of your side and take into consideration the other side. But really great hitters, for example, they'll be in the air and they're looking. They know sort of where the ball is. They've jumped up to meet the ball and they are looking at their opponents to see what side they're favoring, where the blocker's hands are. Oh, wow. So they're understanding what's happening. What are their chances? Am I going for it? But the block's there. Am I going to put it right over their head because the defenders, they can put it down the line, whatever. So I think that it's first taking care of your side, but certainly you're watching them.
Cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
Know. Yeah. Cool. I love it.
There's players that literally you'll be blocking them and they're looking down and you're like, do you want to look back up at the ball? They look as long as you possibly can because they're trying to psych you out. But
that's awesome.
So you go to Dartmouth and you end up though at Oregon.
For a 5th year.
Yeah. So how is your 4th year at Dartmouth? How does that look? And what was different about you physically and mentally by then?
By then I stopped drinking. So
alcohol?
Yep.
What was your drink of choice?
A bunch of beer and all the things. And Dartmouth is a drinking school, right?
Sure.
There's like a lot of fraternities, sororities, and it's in the woods. And the seniors on our team, freshman, sophomore year, would take us drinking, whether we had a good race or a bad race. So it was what I was taught to do. And then we had a transition of a coach, and we had Mark Coogan come in, who was an Olympian at the games in Atlanta. And I saw his race when I was 6 years old. He ran the marathon and obviously did not know he would become my coach. But he came in and he was like, all right, like he told me you could go to the Olympics. And that was a moment for me because when somebody tells you that you trust, you will trust them more than you trust yourself. And so I was like, all right. So I made some better decisions. I was fit enough to get in shape. You know how you have to get in shape to get in shape?
Yep.
So I was in shape to get in shape, and then I got in shape. And then I got third in the country for the steeplechase, which was a sport I chose.
Brutal.
It's fun. It was good because I had that soccer background. So it was like, okay, I wasn't yet ready to run the 10K. I didn't have enough miles in me yet, but I could jump over stuff and stay up and be scrappy. And third in the country was as good as I was going to do, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's
okay.
That was like one of those key. I don't know why it beeps randomly.
It's very pleasant sounding.
Yeah, the little my keys are over here. So I got third in the country, and then got into all the top poetry schools in the country, and I was like a poet, like through and through at Dartmouth, like top poetry.
There's poetry schools.
There's creative writing programs, and I was like a poetry, and I was like top of the class. Like I was going to be a poet, and wrote, was ready to become a poet, and then my friend was like, you could use your 5th year and go to Oregon and you could run. And so it was a thing that revealed itself. And it was my poetry advisor, Cynthia, who had MS, I think. MS is when your body is sort of in pain, right? And it's...
Yeah.
So my poetry advisor had MS, and I was like, I got into these programs. They're fully funded. They're the best in the country. But I have this opportunity to run. And I thought she was going to be like, go to the poetry programs. Like nobody gets into these schools. They admit 2 kids every year and nobody gets the scholarship. I got the scholarship.
Did you know did you know then that was unusual? Were you aware of that?
Yeah. I was like, this is amazing. And then she was like, you have to run. And I was close with her. She was older, and she was like, look, my body's falling. She didn't say it like that. She was just like, you don't know how long your body's going to feel like this. You need to go run. And she was like, you will write for the rest of your life, and you will write about this experience. She was like, go run. And it was really important to get that advice from a writing advisor, not running.
Of course, because they weren't trying to woo you to their side.
Yeah.
Is she alive?
Yeah, she's still at Dartmouth. I think she's like, teaching, probably less, but she's there. She's amazing. She like healed her pain through like this certain diet where she would like forage mushrooms with her dog sugar and cook steak and bacon fat. Like it was this like, she made me my first birthday cake of my life. On my 21st birthday, I slept at her house, which I know that sounds weird, but that back then at Dartmouth, it was like sometimes your advisors were like, come for dinner. It was the best night ever. I slept at her house, and she gave me a mug that I still have, my writing mug. And so then I pursued the running.
Were you scared to go to Oregon?
Yeah,
I mean, that for people who don't know, I mean, I think most people do. That is the lineage of that school. I mean, I feel like the town is completely impacted.
Tracktown USA, baby.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Seriously. It is, I was with Nike for a long time and friends with Tinker Hatfield did my shoe there. And
I know Tinker. He read my book. And he is so nice.
He's a beautiful person.
Yeah. Does he live down here?
No.
He lives in Oregon still?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's very special. Tinker Hatfield is a very famous designer from Nike who originally when Jordan retired the first time, they were going to shelve Brand Jordan. Mm-hmm. And when he went to baseball, and Tinker was like, are you guys crazy? And so he has really been responsible. When I was with them, I started with them in 92. They go, well, we're going to have Tinker Hatfield design your shoe. And I thought, okay, you can't go wrong with that. But anyway, the point is that even Nike originally, most of the employees came from Oregon and they were track athletes. Yeah. Tinker was a high jumper and a pole vaulter. And, you just see that as the lineage. So you go there. Are you intimidated? And like, what's going on? And did you think before that, when you were at Dartmouth, like, let's say your sophomore year, were you ever thinking about the Olympics?
No. I mean, no, yes. Like, I wanted to be an Olympian like any little Mia Hamm jock did, right? I was like a little Mia Hamm kid. I was like a sweatband girl. I was like Mia Hamm, Britney Spears kid. So it was like, yes, of course I wanted to be an Olympian. but it didn't seem possible. Mark put it in my head junior year, right? Coogan, the coach.
But what does he see? Just tell me objectively. Now, this isn't you bragging on you. What is it he sees in you as an athlete? Because he knows something, obviously. He was an Olympian, and there's things we can see about athletes where they go, oh, they naturally have that. What did he see in you that he thought that?
Look, I think that he probably saw some sort of like grace in stride, right? Like even if you can't go 10,000 meters yet, if you can go 1,000 meters and look like you're meant to be doing it, right? You could probably imagine that in any sport where you're like, that person is in stride, or like they're in harmony with that sport. So I think I was in harmony with the sport in a way that was scalable. It's a movie term we're using. This could be scaled from what? So maybe he saw that. And he probably also factored in how untrained I was, because I hadn't run that many miles in total compared to some of these girls that have been running junior, senior year of high school. And I was only running like 30 miles a week freshman year of college. People are running 70 miles a week.
Yeah.
So I was like
fresh.
Yeah, I was fresh.
I mean, don't you think after there's also sort of hours on the parts?
Yeah. I mean, Nick Simmons used to say, and maybe someone else said it, that you get like 10 years or 10,000 miles in running.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's wrong. I think he is more wrong than I used to think, because we're seeing people with these like tremendous careers in their 30s after something unusual, like a pause or a child or something, and do great things, but maybe they're doing great things differently.
Yeah. And it's like nutrition, footwear, all kinds of things that are maybe
they're different
available.
Now. Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But
so that planted, the coach telling you, so you go to Oregon. Is the system different? Are the athletes different? Is 100. The training? Because it's probably a lot more like professional running.
Yes, night and day. So night and day, so wild. So to tell you how different it was, senior year of Dartmouth, we qualified. We really wanted to go to nationals, and I was still not good enough to go on my own. Was it senior winter? I still hadn't gone to nationals ever in anything, and we really wanted to go in a distance medley relay. And we worked every weekend, go to qualifying meets, qualified, try. We finally qualified in a last chance meet. It was very unusual. And we were ecstatic just to go to nationals. We wanted to get the tattoo of the Dartmouth Lone Pine. And our coach was Mark. He was like, you can't get the tattoo unless you get All-American, like top 8 at nationals. And we were like, oh, we're not going to get top 8. Like, we're barely even here. And then we were like, are you going to get it too? And he's like, oh, I'll get it if you get top 3, if you podium. And there's no way, right? So we go to nationals. This is before I went to Oregon. Oregon's there. Washington's there. All the best kids are there. And some Florida State girl slowed down the race in the 3rd leg out of 4. And we had the best miler. We just didn't have the best overall squad. And that girl was dumb to slow it down, because Abby, our girl, got it. And we got 3rd. And you would have thought we won the world. We were crying. We were blah, 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 blah. Everyone gets the tattoos. Mark gets the tattoo. And then we go to the awards. I mean, we get the tattoo after that. We go to the awards, and Oregon lost to Washington. And they didn't show up to the awards because they got second.
Yeah, they want to win or nothing.
They wanted to win or nothing. And the coach was like, look at those Dartmouth girls. They look like they won. They got 3rd. And I was like, well, that's the team I'm about to join. I knew that by then. And so going there, I was like, this is a whole different set of expectations, where the coach is going to try to tell me, at Oregon, every team point can mean the difference between a national championship or not. At Dartmouth, a team point is just joyful.
Right.
So, and that team point really mattered, right? Yes, you're like a professional athlete. School is secondary, tertiary to everything that's athletic. It's really fun. It's fun in a different way.
Yeah.
So I loved it. I'm glad it wasn't 4 years of it, but I loved it.
Yeah. And the training facility they have there is off the charts. Yeah. I mean, it is like a professional, even for their football team and everything. It's a professional facility all the way around. What did you learn there as an athlete, whether it's in your preparation or something mental that you think was bolted on and sort of allowed you then, to end up being an Olympian? Was there a shift or anything a coach did or teammates where you needed to have that in order to go to the Olympics?
That's a really good question because I've never thought about like because I got fitter, right? That was what happened. But what did I learn at Oregon? What I probably learned is that if you want to get to the highest level, it needs to be your full-time job, right? Like, because it really was priority in a way that it never was before. But that's actually kind of a cool thing to learn because it's like, if you put in the time, this can be here for you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's like...
No, it makes sense. I think what's interesting, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I grew up on an island, and so did Laird.
But not the same kind of island.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Virgin Islands, and Laird grew up in Kauai. But sometimes, that amount of output that you needed. So you go to Oregon, and there is something on the line, national championships. So you think it's worth putting that kind of energy into something. Sometimes, when you if you come from a small town or whatever, it's like, it could be good enough. But all of a sudden, when you turn up the stakes, then you think, oh, this is worth all my hours, going to bed early, not going to parties, killing myself, being in pain, making sure I go to rehab and prehab and all the unsexy things. Are you able, and this is just selfish because I'm always trying to generate the kind of energy, even when a really clear thing isn't on the line.
Okay, so you're saying, are you able to like motivate and get up even when there's not a clear, are you saying when
you don't know the stage, for example, like, okay, if you're writing or doing a movie, you don't know if the thing is going to get made, but you got to get up every day and you're going to grind it out. I'm just wondering, because in a way, sometimes I do think that energy creates the next sort of, whether it's championship or success or film or Olympic, whatever. But in people's lives, I think what happens is they don't have this thing to pour all that intensity. It's like, what's the point?
Their ambition is vague.
Yeah. What do you do when because now you're living more in the real world, even though it's not totally the real world, thank God.
Yes, where we live is a magical fairyland.
No, but
driving to your house, I was like, I love this commute. Like this whole day, I was like, this is so great. Because for me to get to my house to your house, I pass Rich's house actually.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's like, you do, and then you do the cut through, and then it's so awesome.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It is in like a knoll land, but it's when it is vague. Because I think a lot of people get here. Do you have any ideas about how, you wind up that turbine and you get it going and you generate all this energy? Because the thing is if we don't have something to put it in, sometimes that energy is really painful to house. Because it's frustrating.
Yes.
You have this energy and you want to direct it at something or somewhere.
Wow.
What do you do?
Oh, I love this question. Because I feel like there's probably a lot of people that feel this way, right? They're like, I have the reservoir, but I don't know where to put it, or I don't know how to harness it. And like, it's almost like you have no kite, but you have wind or something.
Yeah.
So maybe, okay. So look, if we're talking about like North Stars or goals, when we are athletes chasing these goals, Olympics, whatever, it's very clear that the North Star is that thing. And that's what you're waking up toward. And it's ever motivated by the fact that other people are waking up for it too. It's fortified by the fact that the coach believes it's possible. It's fortified by the fact that you're maybe on a scholarship for it. Like there's so much that adds to the like focus of that energy and channeling of it through whatever small funnel it's strong. And so what you're talking about is when there's not that thing and not all the fortifiers, right? Mm-hmm. Well, look, I think that the goal, no matter what, whether we recognize it or not, there's a value or a feeling that's associated with that goal. We don't usually acknowledge it when we have such a clear goal. So like the Olympics, what I didn't acknowledge and what probably led to like the depression after was to acknowledge that I really wanted that so that I could matter forever. And that was because like when my mom left, I was like, how could I possibly not have been compelling enough for her to stay? Like, why didn't I compel her? And so I wanted to be compelling. and to be happy, which it feels like that was, I wanted all the things that either I didn't feel like I was or I didn't feel she was. And then, but when you get there, you don't really get that. And you realize that there was some feeling that I was chasing that wasn't really going to match with that goal. And okay, so that's that, right? And you deal with it, whatever. But now in the real world, what you're talking about is people who are possibly chasing more values and feelings and not as many specific goals, right? And we will always assign goals to our values and feelings because that's what we're doing with our time. Like even if they're little things, like I'm going to exercise every day, there's still goals, but we're starting with that feeling or the value. I want to be a good parent. I want to help my community, whatever it is. And I think that to answer your question about like, how then do you kind of harness it and feel it? It's one, to recognize what that value is. Like what North Star do you have that may have objective things underneath it, but there's an overriding feeling or value that you are aligned with. And if you can recognize that, I think it's helpful because then when goals come your way, first of all, it puts you in a universe, right? Where people are around you that are affiliated with it, like you and me in the room together. It's like, I like meeting you and I'm meeting you because I'm generally in a universe now that's not as pointed towards an Olympic goal. It's just this like broad, like expansive, artistic, athletic value, whatever, right? And we're both in that. And then the thing that keeps you going every day, because that was really your question, was like, how do you actually get it to ignite and keep going and feel purposeful? I think is to trust that there's a mystery of the universe in that that will reveal itself to you over and over and over again if you show up, and that you actually don't know what all the objective goals will be, but they will reveal themselves to you, and then you'll be attracted to them or not. And so it's kind of like trusting that good things will come if you are moving toward your values and your North Star, and then you'll know it when you see it, right? But I'm motivated every day to be like, what's in that treasure chest? And there's bad stuff too.
Sure.
But I'm kind of like into it right now, whatever that is. That's what I'm into right now, at least.
Well, I think what people don't realize is they'll see you and you went to the 2016 Olympics and, you reached all these goals. And then you've talked openly about actually almost having a sort of form of a quasi-depression after, but no one event is actually going to take care of it for you. It's this thing that you just articulated that our life is really made up of. More so. You're not, because the minute you win you go to the event, you win the national championship, you win the Super Bowl, whatever, the World Cup, these monumental things. Think about that celebration. It's just like, rah. And then you wake up the next day and they're either going to ask you, are you going to defend this title? Right. Or give it another 6 months or a year or two. If it's the Olympics, give it 3 years and they'll have, the next. So people don't realize that what you've articulated is actually the thing that we spend a lot more time doing than in pursuit of these really sharp, definitive goals that end up in a different way punishing us. You going to the Olympics and, running for Greece and having times for Greece and doing all this stuff, in a certain way, the price, there is a cost. And it wasn't just hours of training. It's that when you've experienced, I think, that sharp, sharp end of the stick, that excellence, you have to be okay with that you won't do it that way anymore. That because you felt it. And then you have to accept, I'm not going to do that. And so people never consider that. They just consider, well, that was cool. You did that. It's like, yeah, but now I have sort of this reference that I have to retranslate into sort of an everyday life, but still be in pursuit of excellence, but for the sake of excellence, which can be really different. And so, I really appreciate that you are you're someone who has articulated talking about kind of the mental back and forth, and even how I'm not sure if it was hard for you when you were younger, when you were at Dartmouth, when you were at Oregon, before the Olympics, if you dealt with, sort of any emotional deep up and downs, or if that really came, kind of after. Because
it came after.
Right. Because when you have something to focus on, you actually also cannot have to deal with yourself. Mm-hmm. And when you go really high, like go to the Olympics, I think people don't realize that is tough after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I have so many friends that have won every single thing you can ever think of. Because even if you work it out, it's like the whole rest of the world is like always comparing you back to it, or what are you doing now, or do you still run, or
right.
What do you think of her? It's just like, oh my God, like I think people don't understand the art and things that you have to develop
yes.
to move on.
Well, it's like sports are like a playground, right? They're not who we are, and they're just a playground for change. Right? Because that's like how you get to be the best, is you change so much that you are better in a very specific thing than other people, or you're better than yourself yesterday. And I think what people don't realize is that what you get to keep forever is not only the awards and the things that people are looking at and identifying you with, but you are a system, you are a creature that can change. So you basically have a system inside of you that can then continue to change. I think it's not like you got yourself down this tiny little crevice that you have to crawl out of and then become something else. You actually just keep going and you push right on forward. And I wish athletes saw that in themselves.
Yeah.
Basically to be like, I changed so much. No matter how far I actually got, I changed, I evolved, and I know how to deal with all the steps that it takes to evolve. I can evolve. I could just keep evolving. It's like we're tumbling forward.
Yeah.
But the challenge that you're talking about is very real. I think that we need to be more supportive of our peers and our little ones. Like I feel like we could do better for the people, the younger girls in particular, women, to show them that like life can be good after sport. So after competitive Olympics training, mm-hmm. so that they still do it, right? You don't want to deter people from doing it because they're afraid of the moment after. It's just, we could be better about making them feel like there's a unique community that understands them.
Yeah. And I train with a lot of athletes and young athletes, or I see a lot of athletes that were best in class in college and maybe they couldn't make it in the pros due to injury or something. And I always try to remind them, like, in a certain way, you are a loaded gun. You just need your next target.
Wow.
That's all you can. And will it be the same? No, it's not the same, but it's great in a different way. But I think people think about high-powered CEOs. Mm. They leave their job, it's wheeling and dealing and power. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, 6 months, they could walk in and half the people won't know who they are. And it's something they invested 20 years of their life to.
Is that what happens?
Absolutely. And so I think
I want to learn about the real world from you.
Don't
hear about family.
You may never have to go into the real world. No, I have a feeling you might be able to skirt all around it and do all. I think it's so good. Yeah. So I have to ask you, going to the Olympics, what that experience for you, with the Olympics coming up, people are always curious. Mm-hmm. How was that experience for you? Were you feeling a sense of celebration? Were you feeling the weight of the world?
Before?
Yeah, like when you got there and you were getting ready.
I felt so much pressure, actually, because the decision to run for Greece was a big one. And part of it was just how much in the heritage of that country the Olympics is and how much they care about it for their kind of emotional spirit of the country. Mm-hmm. And I was the first athlete to compete. And they told me, they said, you need to run really well because you are the first athlete and you will set the tone for everyone, for a country. So all eyes on me for every sport. I was the first. And I was like, all right, okay. And I'm like a gamer. So I was like, I'll do it. Like I like showing up when I have to for people, but it was pressure. Like I was, and it was kind of fun because I was like, all right, I'm here 12 days early. I got there early. I came straight from altitude. I was ready. I established a routine. I was like, this is my room. This is the path I take to the dining hall. The dining hall's coffee is shitty, so I'm going to go to the bank because I heard they have an espresso puller. So you create a little life. And that is a really fun thing for me to be like, what's my world? Like to hack a new life and be like, what is my routine here? So I did that. And I tried to see all the chaos as opportunity. So that's important, right? You can't sterilize the Olympics. It's going to be crazy. And you have to see that as why it might go well, not why it's going to be unsuccessful for you. And then I just tried to do the things I needed to do and then embrace, again, all that chaos as romance, right?
Did you... Yeah, that romance word. That one, I'm gonna have to borrow that word.
Isn't it kind of fun?
Yeah, my kids would laugh if I was like, "That's romantic."
Well, it is kind of romantic. Okay, look, like you made me this like creamer turmeric thing, and like this, like I used to put this stuff in my coffee every morning when I was training, and I was like, "This is why I'm gonna do well." And it's like, oh my god, how cathartic that like now I'm just drinking it here, and I didn't run 100 miles this morning.
You're just
it's
enjoying
like,
it.
Yeah, it's fun.
Did you? Oh my goodness, I have to ask about, people are always curious about sort of being around all those other athletes when you go to the Olympics. I mean, you'd always been around athletes and obviously
not like that.
Yeah. What was that like? And was it, it's almost like you said, everybody knows how hard it was to get there. So how did you experience that, but not let it kind of get into what you needed to, your job was?
Yeah. Well, your job is simplified by the time you get there, right? You are doing less than you've ever done. You don't have a car. So you have time to do what you need to do at the games. There's not like a shortage of time. You have time to take an ice bath. You have time to feed yourself. You're not cooking. It's a 24-hour dining hall. And so there's time to like soak it in and get your job done. I liked looking at everybody because first of all, in no place in the whole world, not even the UN, does everybody have the country on their back of their shirt and jacket, and everyone wears their same uniform. You have to wear it the whole time.
Oh, you do?
You wear the same clothes the whole time. I mean, people get a couple sets, but then at the end you trade. So like on the last day of the games, everyone is just in the village taking off their shirt and being like, I want that shirt, trade your shirt. Trade your backpack, and everyone's just stripping and giving each other and taking. It's awesome. You feel like you're at some like World Trade Fair Girl Scout camp, last day. It was so cool. So, but to the question of how do you not let it get in your way is, athletes are good at compartmentalizing, right? If you're like, I'm going to go to the game room and like play a game or just watch and drink a soda and just take it in, but then I'm going to go back to my room and I'm going to nap, right? You do both. And I think athletes are pretty good about we're extreme people, right? We're on or we're off. And so I think people can turn it on and they can turn it off. But not everybody does, right? Some people don't do so well at the games because it's too much.
Yeah. They don't have the off. So I think it's too long and they have to be when it has time to come to be on, they're already probably tired because they've been on.
Right.
It's too long. I have to say, I watched Tracktown, which the same year you were in the Olympics.
We premiered it.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that was insane. So you were in a relationship already during that time because you both wrote this project together. So Plum, that character, it's funny. She had both the qualities. She was a sniper, and she was to me a little bit. I don't want to say not a shrinking violet. Like yours is more whimsical. Hers felt a little more skittish. Yeah. Something of the character that you created. But obviously, there was a lot. There was very cathartic when you're in the nail salon with your mother character, and you're like, I need you not to act like my mom. Like there were so many things that I wondered if the process of making that film, besides being fun and creative and your poetic side, was it cathartic?
Yeah. I wouldn't have said that until today because sometimes when people ask me that about like a book or things like that, I'll be like, you know what? I actually had to like go through therapy. You have to be smarter than the characters. You have to actually do your own healing before you make your art. And I think that's true. But now when I think about these films that I've been making, I think that they're kind of like these little memoirs, and they're kind of these books that represent a wrinkle in time that I was in at that time. So like with Plum, she really was derivative of all these super type A athletes that I was running with in college. Like these girls that were like really determined, including myself. And right. And there's a deferred, like I did know people, we went through the Sundance labs, and the advisors were like, there's no way she hasn't like kissed a boy. And I was like, I could name 3 girls right now who haven't kissed a boy who are on my team. So I was like, wow, this girl does exist to me, but not to the world. And yet I wouldn't be playing Plum or writing Plum today. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I made it. Because even though none of my projects are perfect, like they represent the height of my ability, time, and intelligence at the time, they do capture something that was of the time for me. Yeah, it's
and you can feel it. You can feel it when you watch it, and even the conversations. The boy who's not sort of pressuring her, but just even like, well, can't you take a day off? It's like people don't realize that maybe you can't.
Yeah.
Like you got to go.
Yeah. Not for your sanity, at least.
Yeah.
Right. Because you have to believe you're doing everything right.
What about that it hurts? I think if I think about myself going running and I think about you running, I'm like, oh, she enjoys it. It's like you saw Kava in my driveway, the dog. We take him running. He loves it. And when he's done, he stops. But he looks like he's having a good time. Me, every step is like I'm running. And what people don't realize is it isn't that it still hurts. It's still uncomfortable.
Yeah, it does hurt. I think running hurts for everybody, especially the first 10 minutes. Everyone doesn't really, like, it kind of is hard to start, right?
Like, what does that feel like? Like, where does it hurt? Just
for me, I think for a lot of us, it feels like a labor to carry your body, right? Like it's a labor to like lift your legs, especially if you're not as fit as you could be, right? So like now when I run, like I'm in okay shape, but I'm not in Olympic shape, and I'm not in terrible shape. And it's hard. But I guess now I don't push to a place where it's feels like training anymore. So there's a certain feeling I want. I want to feel like I'm trying kind of hard, but I want to have a day ahead of me. So I kind of maybe go to a different threshold than I used to. But there's a healthy feeling about doing something hard, especially before you start your day or at the end of the day or even in the middle of the day. And that's why being in a beautiful place really helps. Being with people, talking to them, being with your dog. Like that's where it feels like good pain.
Right.
Right. I mean, do you agree that yeah, I mean, look, you're doing it for the after, but I think there is an enjoyment in the during if you let yourself kind of walk when it sucks too. Like I walk up hills sometimes.
You do?
Yeah.
I feel like you meet yourself. That's what I like about it. I feel like it's a constant peeling away of all of the whatever layers that I put on, and that I just get to re-meet myself and see how I'm doing. Like, oh, you're feeling a little squeezed. Like, do you still have the ability to be like, oh, that's hard, but you don't react to it, or, all of those things where maybe everyday life doesn't give you that opportunity, and it's honest. It's not a weird dynamic in a relationship or something. It's just really honest. It's
simple.
It's so simple. And I really love that. So what do you, and this is just more of a technical question, when you are running, first of all, what event is your favorite? Is it?
I love, so I ran the 10,000 in Rio. Now I love trail running, and would compete in a trail race. And I like guiding for blind athletes in the marathon. So I love the marathon. I like running with people. I ran with Wes. I like that. That's how I like marathoning best, with people.
And what's the breathing overall, like in a 10K? Because I know it's different on the last kick of the race, right? It's probably just in and out the mouth.
Oh, wow.
But do you have a breathing cadence? Do you notice what your breathing style is leading up to that?
No.
Because your faces are relaxed.
I mean, the 10K, so the 10K is a race of attrition. So you are trying to get on the rail and be right behind somebody and then run within a range that you've planned. Like your coach is like, don't go faster than 75s or something. And then you have to sense the person ahead of you and sense if they're starting to fall off that a little bit. You have to go around them immediately. Like, so you're kind of like a little meditative, but you're very focused.
You're tuning in on them.
Yeah.
So their breathing, their posture, little things.
Yeah. And I was really good at detecting that. Like I'm very good tactical racer. Like if someone is like, do this, I can execute it to the ability that my body, like I can do it to the maximum until I hit my fitness limit. Like I had no problem like getting around people, executing a race plan. And that's soccer.
Yeah.
Right. Like soccer and other sports teach you get to the ball. There's gonna be other girls there. Get to the ball, and don't fall when they step on you. Just get to the ball. So, but the breathing thing, look, I think it was basically my coach would tell me to stay composed and look like I have composure. So there was an element of like behaving like I had more composure than I maybe did. And that maybe dictated the breathing. But I've learned more about breathing since the Olympics.
Yeah, of course. We never get all the good stuff when we're in the peak of the moment.
This is a breathing thing, actually.
Oh, yeah.
That thing. So now I pay attention to it.
Have you implemented, are you trying to do like more nose on your trail run since maybe it's not as much sprinting? Is that any part of it? Because...
Not yet. Like I'm open to it, but I've never...
You'd be a fascinating person to...
I've never done anything with breathing, but I'm interested in it. It's just I haven't ever... done anything with it.
Isn't that so funny? And
I know that it's a thing. Like I know that, right? It's a thing, right?
It's a thing, yeah.
I would love to learn. I know nothing about it. I don't know anything about like heart rate stuff. I don't know anything about anything.
But I think this is really important. No, this is important because Laird always talks about, save your data. Tell me about your experience. And I think we live in a time that's so hacky and here's my heart rate variability and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes it's like, you know what, just go, and obviously you were keeping time. I think what people are not reminded of is, and I was reminded when I watched Tracktown, is you girls are lean and light, but you're also pretty brutal. Like when it gets clogged, people are pushing and shoving.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you learn that the hard way though, usually.
How do you not get angry or get fired up? And because if I had some girl elbowing me because I was trying to pass her or whatever, I mean, obviously maybe I would realize that the juice for the squeeze wouldn't be worth it, that if I got angry, it would take too much energy. But I think initially you'd be like, what? Okay.
Well, so when I was in the European champs before the Olympics in Amsterdam, the Europeans are aggressive.
Yeah.
Way more than Americans. And I never raced in a purely European race.
You didn't have any European teammates?
Yeah, but I had never done, I had done like a Greek championship, but I was used to US racing, right? Like for my upbringing, more Americans, and Americans are a little more polite on the track. I mean, aggressive, but it's more swift. It's like they'll pass you.
Yeah.
But the Europeans will do, like I found people elbowing, like the stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
So this girl got tripped and a bunch of girls went down. I went down. I'm covered in blood. And I was like, shit. Like I was supposed to podium in this race. It's a couple of weeks before the Olympics. And so I got up, I finished the race. I was embarrassed because the Greeks, there was expectation on me. I was actually horrified. And they were like, now we know you're a real Greek because you get back up and you keep fighting and we've lost war. Greeks never give up. So it was like amazing. But I learned, okay, girls can trip and fall. And I was like, what am I going to do when this happens again? So I had a conversation with myself and I was like, if somebody is starting to stumble in front of me, I'm going to not trust that they're going to stay up. Soccer players can stay up. Runners are a little more dainty than that. And I was like, assume they might go down and do not go down. Like step on somebody if you need to. So in the games, girls went down.
Yeah.
I had to step on somebody. You have to go right over them. And so I think it is aggressive. And in terms of the anger you're talking about.
And you have little spikes on, don't you?
Yeah, you're bleeding.
Yeah.
You learn how to get girls off your back. So I learned the European girls snap. Like if someone's too close, you can snap. And so in the games, when girls got close, I snapped because it's like get off me or go around. Right. So there's
that works.
Yeah. Because you're basically saying like get off, like go around or get off me. Don't ride me.
Yeah.
Right. That. And so I learned that. And alter egos are really awesome. And like sometimes when you're racing, you're like, whatever. I'm like get off. Like that might not be my personality, but in
did your alter ego have a name?
No, but I wish that I had named. I think I did have an alter ego. But I also knew that I was like, I could take any of these girls. I was taller than some of the 10K runners. I was a soccer player, like on an Olympic development team. So I was like, if anyone elbows me, like that's bad news for them. Oh. So I think to have that.
Yeah.
And that's where like I'm whimsical and all this stuff, but I'm like, don't mess with me. Like I will fuck you up, if I need to.
Yeah.
And if it's legal, like I'm not going to do something.
You may not start it.
No, I don't start it. I don't want to touch anyone. I don't want anything to do with them. I just want to like do my race.
Yeah.
But if someone's going to like mess around, it's like, don't be messy around me,
It's a hard learning curve. No, it is. Yeah. It's a hard learning curve because sometimes we don't, it's like in regular car racing, they say rubbing's racing, right? Like people don't realize like this too is a part of the game and
get used to it. Like I think that's the thing is people, maybe it's just that some of sport is just having those experiences and knowing they exist.
Yeah.
My friend Sam has this thing that she says where she thinks every life experience, I love her, is a token. My friend Sam Perry, and good and bad. They're all tokens. And she's like, I just want to have a lot of tokens in my life.
Yeah.
And so when you've been talking today about like different things, good things that happen to us, bad things, going to Oregon as a really specific experience, these are all tokens. And I think that's kind of a cool way to think about life too, because then they're all valuable. They're just like experiences.
Yeah.
So maybe that is another thing for people to get up in the morning and think about is like, you're going to go get some tokens. You don't know what they are.
Yeah. So you premiere the film, you go to the Olympics the same year. What feeling did both those situations, what part of you did they feed each of them? What was that like? Because getting a film made is a big deal. People can watch it on Prime and it's on Apple TV, by the way, Tracktown is. How did those satisfy you in which ways?
They were, the art, I always wanted them to stand on their own.
And they do.
Thank you. And that was a thing that when we talked about Nike, I remember someone was like, there was someone who was not very nice to me, who was older than me in the sport, who was like, join Nike and they will not support your artistic career. And I was like, great, I don't need them to. Like, I need them to support me as an Olympian at this time. This was when I was 21, right? And I wanted those to be their own thing. Now I do both and they seem more synergistic. But at that time, I wanted the film to have its own, like exist in a cinematic universe. And I think it felt good to have it like on airlines. I don't know why airlines feel really legit, but that was a nice moment. And then it made me feel like no matter how the Olympics went, I was building something that I was really excited about that would be there for me eventually and no matter what. And then to be at the games was, it's like a quintessential life experience that I'm very grateful to have had and to have been able to like lean into. We had a secret screening of Tracktown. I met a security guard at the game lounge and he said there was a movie theater and in the village. And I had a secret screening of the movie with athletes. And like, no one really knows this, but like a bunch of athletes just came and we watched the movie. Like,
were you self-conscious?
A little, because like I just wanted to do it for fun because we were all kind of like, we had 30 days to just do whatever. I was a little self-conscious because I wanted to be an athlete then in that context, but it was also like kind of an awesome little mischievous thing to do. So it was a good year. It was hard afterwards because I trained the next day like a dum-dum.
You did?
Yeah, because I thought that this momentum was really important to not lose. So I trained. I didn't even take a day off. I just kept training and then tried to figure out what was next, dove into sponsor negotiations. And that's what the depression came on because I didn't pause.
Was it needing to physically, mentally, and emotionally recover?
What I really needed?
Yeah, because sometimes, I always joke that everyone's like, oh, my mother, she's crazy. You ever talk to enough people and it's like, my mom, she's crazy. Right?
Wait.
And I started thinking maybe women get a lot of them when they talk about postpartum and stuff, whatever, they do go crazy. But nobody knows. And it's almost like she doesn't get back on the line.
Oh my God.
And they just kind of stay. Is it their chemistry, their hormones?
Tell me more.
No, I've thought about this a lot because I'm like, if you talk to so many people, they talk about how crazy their moms are.
What do they think? What are they referencing though? Like, do they mean like the way that they treat them, the way that they handle their life? Like, what do they mean?
Maybe a combination or a myriad of things. Like, this is one thing I'm very interested in because I've tried to stay healthy. So my kids might say a lot of things about me. I don't know that they will call me crazy. But my point is, if it's also opened up a pocket in me of like empathy, that maybe when women give birth once or maybe multiple times, their chemistry gets off and they don't ever get back. And then if God forbid,
scary.
Yeah, well, yes. But see, it's just better just to put it on the table.
Yeah.
And then God forbid, then they get thrown into like perimenopause and menopause. Now, then their chemistry really goes bonkers and people don't realize that's such a real thing because we're hormones, we're chemistry, we're a lot of things. And I believe that if we can't get that straight, the spirit doesn't get housed properly if the chemistry's off, no matter how much we try and how much, vitamin D we take, whatever. If like the certain things aren't in a homeostasis, it's tricky. So the amount of output to be in the Olympics in an event like what you're doing, you're depleted.
Completely. No, You're 100% right.
So
100%.
I wonder, and I know maybe in your mind you could have been like, oh, it's in my family, it's in my genetics, but that also maybe you just were...
Everybody goes through this.
Depleted.
Completely.
And they think, I'm depressed, I'm having a mental... It's like, yes, and everybody has this dip and everybody has these surges of like, we've been holding on. It's why everyone gets sick after a film festival. Like, I mean, yeah,
you know what I mean? People go down after these peaks, no matter what they are. Yeah. And athletic ones are particularly pronounced because it's a physical pursuit, above all those other pursuits.
But it also takes a lot of emotional fortitude to suppress fear and have expectation and want to win. And I'm intimidated by her, but I'm not going to let myself and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So you think, oh, I'm going to just keep going. Were you thinking I'm going to keep momentum because then I'm going for 20?
I thought that I needed to keep momentum because I thought that it was almost like I felt like I worked so hard to get to here. Don't lose a single step. So I didn't realize, I was young, and I didn't know anything about mental health. It was a well-kept secret at that time in the Olympic community. Like now everyone's like, yeah, mental health. It's like hip to talk about it. But it was completely not okay to talk about it then. Like it was like really not okay.
Okay, I have a question. This is like I want to learn question for real.
Yeah.
This isn't, I have a question.
Yeah. You have a lot of I want to learn questions.
Because I'm a lot older than you. I'm like more than 20 years older than you. So my generation was, you kind of had to suck it up. That's what we were taught. And then people are just privately alcoholics or whatever, whatever they're using to medicate, right? Is there a fine line?
Yeah.
I feel like I've asked this question a lot. I think that pursuit is hard and it can kick your ass. And that's part of it. So where do you find the balance? And you wrote a book called Bravey, which is incredible, of, I don't want to say succumbing, opening up the dialogue about, hey, considering mental health and yes, this is hard.
Oh yeah.
Metal up.
Yes. Okay, good.
Where's do we know the line? I feel like you'd be a really good person to talk about this.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I I think probably if we get more specific, it's helpful. So like
So in pursuit, I don't mean like I can't get out of bed. But here's how I look at it sometimes is people, and I always think the chicken and egg, like they can't get there because they're not healthy enough. Mm-hmm. And they can't make healthier choices because they're depressed. So it's that weird locked in.
Okay.
That's one scenario. But when people are in pursuit of something hard, like a sport, I believe at that time, it's like, no, we're going to have to figure out the tools that you're going to need to deal with.
Yes.
This is hard. The training's hard. The competing's hard. The pressure. It's like, it's hard.
Well, what about health as a prerequisite to chasing that dream? Right. So if health is the prerequisite to anything, physical, mental, any kind of pursuit, if that's not there, like if we're talking about like get your basics in line, and your basics could be, I think your basics include like, can you support yourself, right? Like, because if you don't have like health insurance or food and, a house, like things like a place to live, good people around you, like that pursuit is going to be limiting, right? So there's your basics, but your basic is also your health. So like perhaps it's like if someone is trying to pursue this thing and we're trying to have them pursue it with integrity, because you're talking about integrity, right? Yeah. That's the word, right? Because you're basically saying like, when do we know when to like be kind to ourselves and all this stuff? So you have to have your basics. And how to tell if you have the health piece, the mental health, the physical piece is a little more maybe obvious. Are you in pain and whatnot? But the mental piece might be like there are, there's some physical cues to your nervous system that I've learned that can tell you if your nervous system is okay or not, right? There's a lot of physical cues, but there's also like certain thoughts that like are obviously you're not well. Like if you think you know the future, like there's things, like if you think I'm never going to be happy, like there's thoughts that are unwell because they're untrue. And if you think you know them, the future, you're ill or you're wrong. So
when you went down after the Olympics, in what style did it show up for you?
I stopped sleeping. So I was sleeping 1 hour a night. And then I was running like 120 miles a week at 8,000 feet with like a national record holder. Like I was training at full capacity with 1 hour sleep. I thought I knew the future. I thought I knew that my whole life was ruined. I thought I knew nothing would get better. And I was certain. I was like, I'm certain I'll never be happier than I've ever been.
That the best moment was already past you?
Certain. And I would like tell my dad and he was like, I don't think that's true. And I was like, no, I know. And I was certain that I messed everything up. Like the certainty, a lot of mentally unwell people have a certainty about things that they can't know. You feel unhelpable, right? That's the worst feeling in the world, to feel like you are unhelpable. And, there's obviously like suicidal thoughts are an obviously
especially,
unwell thought.
No sleep alone will get you there.
Yeah. So there's all these things, right? And
you're in a relationship though.
Yeah. And my partner was not nice to me during this time. And it was really hard because I felt so guilty and unsupported. And it was really my dad and my doctor that I eventually found that were the ones that saved my life. Even my coach was like, and this was not the same Olympic coach. I had moved and he was like, it was like, okay, maybe in your time, the mentally, you said that there was a way people dealt with it. They drank in private, blah, blah, blah. In my prime time, it was like, you were weird if you were depressed. You were a weirdo. So like, I was like, I don't know. I don't feel great. Like, and it was like, oh, it was like you had like, it was like you were weird. And so I left, I had to leave Mammoth and go back to Oregon to get help, but I felt weird. It was like, I don't know how to describe it other than it was like weird.
How did your doctor get your attention?
Well, my dad made me go to the doctor, which is good. And I met two, because you should meet more than one. And I met this one woman and I just was pretty honest about what I was like feeling and seeing and hearing and things. And she was like, wow, you are really suicidal. We need to get you on all this medicine and we need to sedate you because you're going to kill yourself tomorrow. Like she was like, and I was like, whoa, I didn't know I was like that sick. And she was like, and you need to find a therapist because I'm only a psychiatrist. So you'll have to find a doctor. And I was like, like this is way too much for me.
Yeah.
And she was too like, she was like a woman, and I was intimidated by women to begin with. And she was like, made me feel like I was like a problem. So I was like, I don't vibe with this lady. And then I met Dr. Arpaia, and he was like the kind that wore those like, before it was cool, he wore those shirts from like the gas stations with like animals, like wolves on them. Like he was very kind and like, and just like kind. And when I told him my symptoms, he was like, listen, when you were little, you used to fall down and like get hurt and scratch your knee and whatever, and you get injured, and then you would eventually heal. And he's like, you kind of fell down here, but you have a scratch on your brain. So you are injured, but on your brain. And I was like, oh, that's brilliant. Because I understand injuries and I understand the body. And he was like, yeah, you can heal, but you're injured. And he, gave me principles like your actions change first, then your thoughts, then your feelings, in that order only. So we're going to focus on your actions. And like your feelings are going to feel bad for a long time, but we're going to focus on your actions. So he just like gave me a way to see it that made perfect sense to me.
Well, back to a system for you.
Yeah.
So is it actions like you're going to get to sleep, or were you going to eat differently? Were you going to, if a thought came in, you were going to have a different practice on dealing with it? Like what were some of the things that were really especially helpful?
Well, not everything was helpful. So we tried stuff, right? So he was like, I want you to try to go on a walk in the woods. We did cognitive behavioral therapy 3 or 4 times a week. He had me write in a notebook like 300 times, like every day in every way. I'm getting stronger and stronger, like over and over and over again. So I had to like write these things out because I had terrible thoughts. So he was probably trying to have me write things, I don't know what.
Right. In lieu of the terrible thoughts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Food, it was just like a bunch of actions. And I think it's almost like when you make a soup where it's like, was this one ingredient the thing? It's like, I don't know, but the soup tastes good. And eventually it worked. Some stuff didn't work. Like meditation wasn't, for me at that time, easy or doable or helpful. But other people, maybe that helps.
Yeah.
But your question about when to get people to push, by the way, like if you have your basics, because I think it's an important one, like the thing that people need to do is they need to ask themselves to try their best. They don't need to be the best. And that's what the standard you need to hold yourself to. And that honors that there's going to be hard days.
Yeah.
Right? Because you still try your best, but you give 90% of shit that day. So I think that is kind of that integrity line, and not basically seeing losses as normal. Like it's just,
I feel for the group that and I don't ask it for me. It's more of if you're going to go out into the world and do anything, anything at all, parts of it are going to be hard. So how do we support them in a really loving, full way, not just be like, oh, it's okay. You're depressed, you're anxious, you're this. It's like, first of all, I also believe labeling people, very few people are depressed. They feel depressed, they feel anxious, but then the minute you label them, now they go, oh, well, I am.
It's like a couch that they'll sit in or something.
Yeah. Instead of, you've had injuries. I have it with my knees. And I'll be like, yeah, I don't have good knees. And when I say that, I go, oh, I've moved in the injury. I've named the injury. And now that is a part of my whole story about myself. And I sometimes think people just need different tools, different skills, and sometimes a kick in the ass and be like, hey, this is a thing that you'll experience, but you can get through this, and you can get tools because it's also human.
Yeah.
Like even the notion of like feeling happy, it's like, come on. What did Arthur C. Brooks say? It's sort of like an indication, a direction. It's not like a place. You were saying about going towards your values.
Yeah.
These aren't like constants. These are like arrows going, hey, let's head this way. So I want to make sure that we talk about it, because I think you're a great balance between the two of somebody who's done a lot of hard things and talked about going through hard emotional times and mental times.
Mm-hmm.
So did Bravey come out of this experience, writing this book? I mean, writing the book?
I didn't put any of the depression stuff in my book proposal because I thought it would preclude me from a deal, because it was that time where I was like, oh, they're going to think I'm weird, so they won't want to.
You're ahead of the curve.
Yeah. But then I wrote the chapter and they're like, oh, this is the book. So I wrote it anyway, but I think the book is a good, it was a good like capturing of that journey of like lost mom to suicide, was left with a series of unanswered questions and responsibilities that felt too big for my age. Yeah. Took them on in the best way I could, didn't know everything and fell down with some of the deficit but everyone falls down, right? And then rebuilt with my own rules, right? Like in a more active way of like, I don't know. I think just trying to give people, like, because I've had extreme experiences, this is what I see myself in the world. I've had extreme experiences. Like I just have. I've seen unseeable things. Like it is scary. Some of the things I saw, really scary. And then seen some vibrant, beautiful things. And so it's like, okay, I fall somewhere in between that spectrum, and everybody falls. There are people outside of that, but there are fewer people outside of it than there are inside of it. So if I can write to kind of like nurture and cultivate the people within those, like the people who can trust that I have something to say, that they trust, which is not everybody, but whoever. And if I can help them to see things differently, words are my passion, right? So if they can see it differently, then they can feel helpable, and then they can live their own awesome life, whatever that is.
Yeah. And you said it, your rules. I think people don't realize. I have a friend who said, we're all perfectly wounded.
Oh, that's so sweet.
And then it's almost like, okay, this is your kit. Now you're going to start the work, whatever the work is. And then you'll make your own rules. And I think you're a really good example of somebody who had a lot of different things and not only has excelled, but is willing to say all along the way, you have to keep refiguring it out.
Yeah, and not be so like ashamed of being like not right. Like, what are we afraid of getting in trouble? Like, what is like the real fear? Like, I guess people fear failure, probably, but like
rejection.
But I guess I'm like, but why do you fear? What's the worst part about rejection? Is it that you won't survive in the world, or like, is it that it will feel bad? Like, what are people really afraid of with rejection?
Well, it's biological, right?
But is it that it doesn't feel good, right?
If the tribe, if the biological impulse, once we can realize that we don't live like this anymore, but if the tribe was like, oh no, you're out, you're not going to survive alone.
Okay, but we don't live in the tribe. Right. So it's like, if you do get rejected and you can sit and be like in anything that we're afraid of, can't we just be like, okay, what's the worst case of this? Okay, I get rejected. Can I live with that worst case? Then you can go. Yeah. Isn't that kind of about, like when you signed contracts, like with Nike?
Yeah.
Didn't you have to consider the worst case scenario of the contract and be okay with it before you signed it?
100%.
So that's something athletes need to do, first of all, because so many people sign them and they're like expecting the best. And it's like, well, you better sign for the worst just in case.
Just in case. Yeah.
And so if we can go into these agreements with ourselves of the dreams we're chasing and hope for the best, but accept the worst is not death, then maybe our fear will be calmed because we know we can live with the worst.
We can survive it.
Yeah. So then you can be like, well, then I'll throw myself full on in, because if it doesn't happen, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
I think, and it's all this order of operations stuff, right? It's like people are just thinking out of order, right? They're just thinking out of order. They're not giving space and being like, what does this really mean? When I ground it in reality, nothing should be like these clouds that we're trying to grab with tweezers. We need to like ground things and be like, what's really going on? And then I think things are way less puzzling.
I think what's fascinating is you can say this better than anyone, because if I say, hey, everybody, we need to get grounded, they're like, oh, okay. I mean, my birth sign is a Capricorn.
Wait, why?
Because
Wait,
I appear to be like so linear. I think it is so powerful because you also have this air about you that, that you might even lift off and fly around. And then you're like, oh, wait, we have to, ground it. I think it is the perfect combination for people to go, oh, she's even, that balance of doing both. And I think that's why, whether it's your books or your films, I think that's why people really are drawn to you, because it's one thing when people are like, you should get organized. It's like, okay, coming from you, but coming from you where you're like, you're just like, hey, but we have to still, figure it out and get systematized. It's like, oh, okay. Injuries. Where do you go? Everybody's different, right? Like I'm married to somebody who's been injured a lot.
Oh, wow.
And he can deal with it. He knows how to get better. He's been hurt enough times. He's gotten better enough times. He just does. If you say do 8 reps, he'll do 16. He's more compliant. He always says everything is a system and a process. Mm-hmm. So he will process his way through to recovery. For you and somebody who probably, especially when you were running, had a lot of energy, mm-hmm. What did you do? What helped you to get through those times?
So I never got injured before the Olympics. I had no injuries. I think I broke a toe once, but I stubbed my toe.
Like on the bed frame or something?
No, I left a weight out. And that was a lesson I said I didn't have enough time to clean my room. But then when you break your toe on the weight, you suddenly have time to clean your room and you have time to deal with your toe.
You had a dumbbell in your room?
Yeah. I lived in a studio. So it was everything was everywhere. And I had these little dumbbells that I would do my little running.
Yeah, your arm weight.
Arm weight. But so I didn't have any injuries till after. And I tore my hamstring during the Depression because I was running that 120 miles a week, 8,000 feet of
Not
altitude.
Sleeping.
1 hour of sleep.
Yeah.
So I tore my hamstring. And I had never had an injury, so I didn't really understand what it felt like to be injured. And my coaches, so I had to take time off because I couldn't run. It hurt, but also I was unwell. But when I got well mentally, my leg was okay, not great. I had some PRP. I'd had what's the cortisone, which you should never do on no. Don't do it.
Only if you're in the NFL and you got to get back out there. It
was so dumb.
Yeah.
Did the dumbest stuff. And then, but I could run, and my coaches, this is shame on coaches and physios for not telling people they're injured when they are. So I could run.
Would you have heard it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm 100%. I can live in reality.
Okay.
I can take feedback. I can get criticism. I'm all good. It might hurt for a second, but it's no. I would rather live in the truth. But they were well, because you can run 20 miles, you must not be injured. And so they said I was weak in the butt. And so for 4 years, I was training with a torn hamstring, and it was probably getting worse and worse and worse. And I didn't feel right. And I ran my first marathon, and I was didn't feel good. I was I feel like I have one leg. And they're your butt's just weak. There's no way you're injured if you can run 20 miles or you could do that workout. My times were too slow for what I had run on the track, but they weren't slow. So it was this dangerous middle ground. Finally, I met a physio in Boulder. I was training for Tokyo for a qualifying race. And this random physio didn't know who I was, didn't know Olympian, didn't know anything. And he was I think you might be injured. Because by then I said, I have a weird hamstring. Mm-hmm. And if anyone says they have a weird anything, they're injured.
Yeah.
Nothing's weird. You're injured. Okay, I'm sorry. And he was would you get an MRI? And I was yes. Got an MRI. And he was oh my God, your hamstring is more torn than Usain Bolt when he medically retired. And I was what? And he's I don't know how you're walking. And so I stopped because if someone's injured, I stopped and I did the research, and it was very clear I needed a reconstruction because I had run through this for 4 years. So I had scar tissue.
Yeah. So
I had a reconstruction surgery. I released my book during that time. It was COVID, so I did it all virtually. I didn't tell anyone because it was kind of scary to say you had a surgery. And then I recovered it, and I'm completely healthy now. And I have a different approach to injury now, which is that when I'm in pain, I stop and I pivot the goal from fitness to health immediately. And I don't cross-train through anything. And I do what I need to do. If it's a nerve thing, you need to wait, you need to sleep, you need to eat turmeric, you need to whatever you need to do, but I don't run through injury because it's quicker and I don't cross train. I'm not about it. I'd rather get out of shape in proportion with my frame health, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll find my way back into fitness at a rate that makes sense because I'm not like, my heart is not a Ferrari and then my frame like a, an older car.
Yeah, Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really wise.
People don't pivot quick enough, right?
Yeah, and I think people don't realize that for most of us, most people, it should be about health.
100%.
Feeling good. And I train really hard so that I'm healthy. And I like the idea of performance, but I think your point is really important because I think sometimes people, they're not connected to how everything feeds everything. And just, taking care of first principles. I mean, let's face it. I mean, people be like, oh, my back. It's like, how long have you had that? 6 years. It's like, okay, well, do you want to get involved with maybe figuring that out?
It's a basic.
Yeah, it is a basic. You were talking about the basics. What have you learned about relationships or marriage and maybe not being in a marriage? What lessons have you taken with you to propel you into the future?
Oh man, I've learned a lot. Well, I've learned that we can always be proud of our own commitment. And that is something to really, if you committed to something, a person, a goal, no matter what happens or what is reciprocated or not, the fact that you were decided to commit is something to be really proud of. And when I think about the commitment I made to someone who did not commit to me in that honorable way, I'm devastated, but then I'm also like, man, but I did. I did so I can be proud of myself. I think I learned that love is a verb. It's not just a feeling. And I didn't grow up around a relationship because my dad was a single dad and he didn't really introduce us to girlfriends unless it was I met 2 over the course of 20 years or
Does he have anyone now?
He's married.
Oh.
Yeah, he's married. He married a couple of years ago. So not in my kind of childhood lifetime.
That's good though. It's nice.
Yeah.
And then what about the decision when you think, because especially somebody who's a winner, right?
Yeah.
I'm putting that winner.
My God, it's so
I'll make
hard.
it work.
Dude, it's the hardest thing. So.
Because I always say this to people, you might be with somebody for 3 years, 10 years, whatever it is. It could be a success and it can end. Mm-hmm. Whatever you needed to learn, you had the chance, if you did, to love each other. And then, so it isn't about it's a failure. I think staying together and not being happy is the failure. Mm-hmm. So what did you, when you had to make the decision as somebody who probably knows how to really focus in, how did you go, okay, this isn't going to go any further?
It was really hard. For me, to be honest, my body started to hurt in this insane way. I couldn't even walk and it was months and months and I was seeing every physio. And then I had a pelvic floor PT out here who's amazing. I really trust her. She was like, this doesn't seem athletic related. Is something going on at home? And it was very obvious. I knew, but I hadn't talked to anybody about it, not even my best friend. And then I called my doctor who had helped me through the mental health stuff and told him that there had been, a lot of bad things happening. And he was like, you have got to create space because your body will never feel good if it's not at ease. And I love that he used the word ease, not trauma or stress, because those are words we can kind of make decisions about. But ease, it's you could be uneasy when your best friend's driving your car because they're ripping through stop signs or whatever, it's just a feeling.
Nobody can tell you. I have a good friend who say this. Yeah, he taught me this trick. You can say to somebody, I'm not comfortable with that. He goes, because they can't say to you, well, you can't be uncomfortable.
Right.
So you can say, hey, I don't feel at ease. It's so smart.
Yeah. But even then, so then I healed immediately, which was telling, right? Because it had been months and I didn't have any medical intervention, but it still took time because of that athletic mindset of giving up. And also the perplexing feeling of I committed to something and it wasn't an equitable exchange. and being confused about it, about like, what is love? Like, I don't get it. I think I'm figuring it out, but I think I'm still figuring out. I mean, I know what it is, but I think it was very confusing, to understand. And then really, to be honest, when we're athletes, we become highly specialized in our tasks, and we defer development in certain ways. And so one of the things was that I had become like pretty codependent in a way that kept me in it in an unhealthy time. So I had to learn skills and realize like where I was having deficit so that I could make strong decisions, not from a place of need, but from a place of, just wanting to be with someone. Right. And so I think it was really helpful, because it's hard to say like, don't think about that or forget this or blah, blah. It's hard to basically tell yourself to shift your attention without focusing on something. And so before I even formally, like really, really legally separated, I just shifted my attention to becoming more independent. And I was at that time dating in a really happy new situation, but independent of that, had goals to become my own first resource for everything. Learning how to do my own taxes, learning how to ask myself how my day was, getting myself the smoothie I wanted. It's like things that I'm embarrassed to say that like I outsourced. And so that makes it hard to make healthy decisions. So what I'm saying is this: the decision becomes easier about what's best for you when you don't feel desperate for something that you might be able to give to yourself.
Yeah. And it's interesting because your work was even intertwined in your relationship. So that is even tricky.
That's scary too.
Yeah. So then to have the independence or the confidence to say, I can still pursue this thing that I love.
Oh, scary.
Separate from this situation. So I really appreciate that. And I think it's interesting. I've been in a relationship for almost 29 years, and it is so interesting to have a space that's just you, your thoughts, your feelings, your voice, your opinions. And because everyone around you and unintentionally will they'll sort of infringe upon, right? Especially when you you have children, whatever. And all of a sudden it all sort of bleeds together. So I do think it's a really good reminder of also, this is me. I can certainly take care of things if I want to and need to. My life is enhanced by being in this partnership. But if, something were to happen, it's like, the house would still stand. And I always try to teach my daughters that idea of come into the relationship to make their life better, but be in the relationship because you want to.
Yeah, not a need. And really like, there's a fun quest to being your own first resource. Cause then you basically are like, any impulse you have, like any need, you're like, ask yourself first. Like if someone, cause I literally asked my doctor, the one I'm working with now, and I was like, how do I do it? How do I become? She was like, just like slow down and like listen to the needs you have, and then realize when you're outsourcing or not feeling incapable, and just try to do it yourself.
Yeah.
And that sounds like so basic, and maybe that's one of the joys of this like athletic career continuing and evolving, is like, you're capable, but that you did not develop in certain ways when you were developing in others, because we're just one human.
Yeah. And
then to be like, oh, what a joyful adventure I get to have after this in learning how to own a house or whatever it is that you're scared of doing, like calling someone to trim your brush so we don't have fires in the valley. You know what I mean? It's like, it's such a,
but that's also when if you're going to fix any of your appliances, have one of your male friends come over to deal with the guy. I'm joking.
Oh my God. Do you mean because they treat you differently?
Yes.
Wait, can I tell you a crazy thing? This guy came to change my water filter and it was like, yeah, they do. There is a thing.
Yeah, no,
but he comes over and I was like, well, I'm an athlete, so I need some like really good water. Blah, blah. And he's like, what kind of athlete? He's like, you're a skateboarder, right? And I was like, no, I'm not a skateboarder. And he's like, well, what are you then? He's like, you're kind of, and I was like, I'm a runner. He was like, what? He's like, you're not skinny enough to be a runner.
Is that-
And he's like, you're kind of curvy and blah, blah. And I was like, I'm not that curvy, but also like, it was so out of pocket, but he was nice.
Did you want to race him? Were you at that point like, okay, let's just go?
No, I was like, just fix the filter and get out of here. And I was like, I don't know what you're...
Okay, now I'm going to add something that maybe the therapist may or may not agree with. Okay. This will just be a pattern that I've recognized.
Okay.
In being in a relationship, and I'm with a very competent person. Justin can attest to this.
I want your wisdom, by the way.
No, the other interesting thing, and this would be like being on a team with somebody who's better at something than you are. I am very quick at this point to do what I do really naturally and really well, and defer to Laird very quickly into the things that he can just do without any effort. So then there's another part of the story of be your own first resource to being in partnerships where it's like, yeah, you like, I got it. Oh, you got it.
That's good, right?
Yes, it is. So I want to say also, if you come across somebody and that there's a flow of that naturally, don't be afraid of that.
Yeah, that sounds nice.
Yeah, I mean, so I just want to add,
that's nice.
Continue that part of the story, because there's things like,
you don't have to do it all.
And by the way, I don't want to, like, you know, I don't, you know, there's certain things Laird does very well, and I don't really have an interest. Now, if I had to, like, figure it out, I could either get someone to solve it or whatever, but I just want to put that in your ear, because then there's sort of an enhancement where you can ride both of those skill sets and make your lives also easier.
That sounds great. That sounds like the equitable thing to do too, you know, where you're and efficient and loving.
Efficient.
You know? Yes, efficiency.
The word I like.
We love efficiency.
Okay, so you have your marathon coming up named after you, and you're going to be going and running for the people, right? A marathon for the Olympics. Does that hurt? Like, how do you feel when you're getting ready to do a marathon?
I feel fine now, because it's always like a pace that I can handle.
Okay.
I would say Boston and LA Marathon this year were a little bit challenging for me, because I froze my eggs in December and I had to take 5 months out of exercise because, look, I don't want to tell people that because nobody else had my experience, but I had like I had really bad nerve pain. So I didn't run at all except for those marathons. And so that was nerve-wracking because I knew I was going to feel a little bit of pain. I knew I was out of shape. But this stuff I feel very happy with. And it's nice to go a little slower because you get to actually enjoy the view. Yeah.
If somebody was listening to this and they thought, I used to run a little, or I'd like to take up running, and let's say they're not deconditioned, let's say they exercise, but they don't run per se, what would be the smartest first way to incrementally improve and add running to someone's regimen?
I think this person should do 1 minute on, 1 minute off for 15 to 20 minutes and do that 3 to 4 days a week. And the walking is not bad. Walking's great because then when you're running, your form is better. Then, you know, like better to run 20 minutes than run 10 minutes so that you are underneath yourself, you're within yourself. And if you're wondering about pace, try running conversational pace. So a pace where you could talk to someone pretty comfortably, or at least talk to somebody. That's like a good way to gauge your pace versus looking at the watch.
Do you care if who you're with runs at all? Like
No.
that they can go for a run with you?
Yeah, I love running with. You mean, do I like running?
No, is it okay if they don't?
Yeah, no. Oh, you mean my partner?
Yeah.
Oh, no, I don't expect that. Yeah, no, I don't expect that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
It's all good. I'm like, yeah.
Can you imagine?
Like,
I'll go.
there are a lot of people who date like people who can like pace them in workouts and stuff.
Yeah.
That was never me. But yeah, I have plenty of friends who run.
And when you guide somebody, you guided a woman who was, is it legally blind or what's the technique? I mean, I think you talked about it's all about letting go in that, right? Just her because they can't see. How do you guide them and what's that like? I mean, that's astounding.
I think everyone should try guiding if they're curious, because it is like a really awesome way to connect with people in the sport. Lisa, who I guide mostly, we are connected with a tether, and we have learned how to use tension to communicate. So she knows like when there's a certain amount of tension, we're oriented properly. And then if she feels the pull, that's like us going, if she's on my right and she feels the pull, we're moving to the left. If it's too loose, like she doesn't sense the tension, she needs to pull to the right a bit. I'm bigger than her, so she's never going to pull me over. And then, we want to use tangents. We don't want to run 27 miles when everyone else is running 26.2, right? There's tactics to the fluid stations. I need to pay attention to pace. I need to pay attention to her competitors because she wants to win. She won the Boston Marathon this year, and we had to pass someone. It was competitive.
What was her time? I'm just curious.
She runs, her PR is like 3:25, but we ran under 4 hours this year. Wow. It was a very hot year, and she had some nerve pain going in, but she did great. And then you're an audiobook, right? Like you get to tell them what they're not seeing and take their mind off their pain by being like, all right, there's someone carrying a surfboard, running the marathon. You can make her laugh. Like, this is the neighborhood where you might want to live here, but I don't know, it's a little quiet. Like, oh, there's a coffee shop, oh, there's these kids, there's bubbles. Like, and just getting her to not think about her pain.
Yeah.
So you get to be like a little narrator.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's fun. Oh my God, it's so fun and competitive on somebody else's behalf. So let's talk about that energy that you talked about. Yeah. Maybe you put it into somebody else, right? And you help somebody else get to their goal and you're competitive on their behalf, right? And that's fun.
That's powerful.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. Well, Alexi, I could talk to you all day. I also want to end this with something I heard you say that I thought was really important, and I thought I would borrow it, is you said that you practiced putting your tongue into the back of your teeth so you would listen.
Yeah, I need to still get better about that.
Oh, you do great. I just thought that was important because I really want to listen. And I think people all in their lives, especially in their personal lives, want to be better listeners. And I just thought that was just a great technique and reminder.
Physical cues are easier, right? Than like a mental cue.
Because it's just, okay, boom.
Do it.
Yeah.
We all need physical cues, probably for everything.
All day long.
Right? Yeah. And you and me, we still need to name the period of time when you're developing. Like into a
your blender period?
Yeah, but that's not the right word. I feel like we need to figure that out because what if it could be something that like, I'm thinking about like, 19-year-old girls who like just went through puberty. It's really good for them. They're kind of struggling on the team. They might stick it out. They don't know, blah, 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 blah. They need some like, they need like a state that feels kind of like cool.
Sexy and possible.
Yeah. That like represents the word development. So that they maybe have a chance to like see themselves through something that they're curious about. Yeah,
I think that'll maybe make that your next book.
Yes, we'll call it The Blender.
The blend. Well, someone always says that we're always becoming, right? Yeah. All of us, but these are continuous. But I think that is for me personally, it was a very pivotal time. I became a really different person from 17 entering college to 20 when I left. So I think we're always doing that. So can you direct people to all the places that they can find you? Because there's a lot.
I think my Instagram is the most updated place. I'm updating my website right now, which feels adult, but it's not ready yet. So that would be just Alexi Pappas, which is ALEXI PAPPAS.
Yeah.
I feel like my name sounds like a dinosaur name. Alexi.
Have you been
T-Rex?
Have you been back to Greece?
Yeah, I went twice this year.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's great. I love that. I love going there. I don't feel like I'm on vacation when I'm there. I feel like I'm just like home-ish. Yeah. It's less, it's not like, oh, it's like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah. Wait, I have to ask you one thing. Eating. Do you eat, if you're racing early in the morning, do you eat anything?
Yeah, I eat 4 hours before, a sandwich with peanut butter and sliced banana, 4 hours before the race. That's what I used to do. And I will still do that. I could be like a little more casual and not 4 hours before. Could eat oatmeal, could eat other things. Used to eat a cookie on the start line because my coach did. My Olympic coach used to do that.
A cookie on the start line?
But don't get too adventurous and eat a Blondie or you'll poop your pants like I did. I did that too. I got cocky. I was like, a cookie? Well, I'm gonna eat a Blondie from this like small town bakery in Maine. And then I just pooped all over myself. I love your earrings, by the way. I love the color green.
Me too. It's my favorite.
I love the color green.
Me too. It makes me feel good.
It
has the
color?
most shades of any color.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, green has the most amount of shades of it in its color.
Oh, that's cool.
It makes me feel good.
I love green. I love it.
Well, you're a gift to the world, and I can't wait to see just your next projects. And thank you for being, like I said, a sniper and in the daisies.
That's the nicest.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's
more sniper
really
than
nice.
daisy, but it's there.
Yeah, you know it. Well, that's
yeah.
because you and I can talk like that. It's like some people like. Well, also you don't need to wear your hard work on your sleeve. Like the daisy is just that. Like not everyone. I don't need to be like I'm gritty. It's like you can assume that. It's not what I like traffic in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I just look in your eyeballs. I know.
You can tell.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm so happy to meet you. Rich was like, you gotta meet her, and I always take his advice with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks again for listening and spending time with us on the Gabby Reece Show. I want to thank Alexi for joining me today. And a quick reminder, her new podcast, Mentor Buffet, will be launching on Thursday, August 8th. Make sure you check it out and make sure you like and subscribe so you never miss one of our conversations. If you know someone who would benefit from the information shared today, please pass this episode along and leave a comment below sharing with us what you found insightful. Thanks again for listening. Keep going. Remember, we're playing the long game, and I'll see you next time.